الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Before we begin the khutbah, unless there's a need for it, I request my brothers to inshallah come forward and sit in the first two rows. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever comes to the khutbah early, comes and sits close to the khatib and listens to the khutbah attentively, his reward is such and such. Jazakumullah khairan. Inna alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh, wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فقال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال الله تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلق من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي رسول الله وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم ما بعد. When our kids are young, The first thing we teach them that Bunya al-Islamu ala khams. Islam is based upon 5 pillars. As they're growing older, we teach them that Islam is 3 levels. Islam, Iman, Ihsan. As they become old and adults, we teach them innamal a'malu bin niyat. Actions are based upon the intentions behind them. These are central ahadith. They are from the corpus of our religion. Scholars have said up to a third of our religion are based upon ahadith like these. And all of these ahadith, these foremost of the statements of the Prophet ﷺ, have been collected in a book called Sahih al-Bukhari. In fact, if you come across a lecture in which the lecturer, a khutbah in which the khatib, a book in which the author mentions a hadith that you have never heard before, and it causes some doubt or tumult in your heart, and at the end of that, the speaker mentions Rawahul Bukhari, the author says collected by Imam Bukhari, the entire ummah, brothers and sisters, sighs a relief. If it is in Jami' al-Bukhari, it must be Sahih. If it is a collection of Imam Bukhari, it must be authentic. This kind of relief and qubuliyah, acceptance, has been given to no other book that I can think of, like this book, Sahih al-Bukhari. In fact, you cannot think of delivering a lecture of any degree of authenticity about Islam anywhere on earth, except that will contain ayat or verses from the Quran and sound ahadith that are found in Sahih al-Bukhari. So who is this al-Bukhari, and why do we want to talk about and learn from his book, As-Sahih? Al-Bukhari is the nisbah given to an individual who lived and died 12 centuries ago from the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was born in the small town of Bukhara, which by the way till this day exists in modern day Uzbekistan. Bukhara was a small town in the erstwhile province of Khurasan. Khurasan is a large tract of land which in modern times includes Iran, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and other countries and locations in Central Asia today. Al-Imam Bukhari was from a very small town called Al-Bukhara, and that's where he got his nisbah from. He was born as Muhammad ibn Ismail, ibn Ibrahim, ibn al-Mughira, ibn Bardizbah, al-Ju'fi, but he became famous with his nisbah al-Bukhari because of his town. His great-great-grandfather Bardizbah was captured as a slave in the conquest of Tashkent by the armies of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and his father, rather his great-grandfather al-Mughira, accepted Islam. And from that onwards, his entire family was into learning Islam and studying. He was born on the 13th of Shawwal in the year 194 Hijri, a time which historically we call the golden age of hadith scholarship. This is a period of only about 200 years or so, from 150 Hijri to 350 Hijri, during which time learning hadith and the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the foremost of vocations. It's the best thing you can do for yourself and for your children. That's the best way for you to receive prominence, for you to invest your time in learning and spreading the sunnah. This is the time in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala produced the highest number of scholars in hadith, whose books till there we learn. And Imam al-Bukhari surpassed all of them, as we will see from his life. Rahimahullah ta'ala. It is said when he was born, he was either born blind or he became blind very early on in his life. And his mother, Allah yarhamha, she made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, begging, crying, pleading to return the sight of her son. And she did this, listen to this, 2 years. Not 2 days, not 2 months. 2 years she spent making dua incessantly, never giving up hope. Until the Imam Bukhari himself relates, one day I woke up and my sight was returned. And I rushed to my mother, we hugged and we cried. Brothers, this is the first lesson. Never, ever, ever give up hope in dua. Especially sincere dua. Like this woman did. It is fair to say that it is ultimately from the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Imam Bukhari's sight was to be returned. But we can also argue that had it not been for the incessant efforts of his mother, Al-Imam Bukhari may have been one of billions of Muslims who lived in this ummah. We never heard about them. But it was his mother who continued making dua. As Yaqub alayhi salam says in the Quran, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Indeed, nobody gives up hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except those who do not believe. Brothers and sisters, If there's anything you want and you have tried to acquire through halal means, do not give up hope. Make dua for it. There's no one better at making dua for something that you want except yourself. No one can acquire the same degree of sincerity as you can for what you want, especially if you want to acquire through halal means. A good job, a pious spouse, a good dwelling. Why not make dua for that? And why stop? Why give up making dua so quickly? Look at the lesson from this woman and how she served the ummah of Muhammad because she made sure her child who was blind, Allah returned his sight, and he did. He grew up learning and memorizing the Quran and from the scholars of his town. It's a small town, Bukhara. But he became famous very quickly. It is said that by the time he was 10, 11, he started correcting his teachers, his earliest teachers in ahadith, in their mistakes. What's interesting is a story mentioned about how young he was. In the town of Basra, which is in Iraq today, Basra at that time was not known for Islamic scholarship. The town of Kufa, and for sure the town of Baghdad, these were centers of learning in Iraq, but not Basra. And people from Basra used to go to these towns to study. Or they would go to Hijaz, Makkah, Medina to learn deen. But no one would go east of Basra, where Bukhara was. And yet when the town people of Bukhara they heard that this young man called Muhammad ibn Ismail is about to go to Hijaz and he's crossing through their town, they came outside the town, waiting to grab him. They want to get first dibs on him so they can learn from him. And they saw him coming, they swarmed him, they surrounded him, and they begged him, Haddathni Shaykh, Haddathni. And he's saying, not now, later. They grabbed him, made him sit down in the middle of the desert outside the town, and he started teaching them hadith. It is said that when this incident happened, he did not have any facial hair yet. Not because you shave, but because he was in his early teens. How long does it take for a young man to grow some facial hair? 14, 15, latest 16? We know for a fact he was not 16 because when he turned 16, rahmatullah, he decided Hajj is incumbent upon me. Let's pause here for a second, brothers and sisters. How many of our seniors, they are at the age of 60, they're not made Hajj. Something or else is keeping them. Family, they want to make sure their children graduate from college. As soon as they graduate, it's time for them to get a job, and they need help with that, so the parents stay behind another year. Then the child gets married, they stay behind another year. Then the child's spouse is pregnant, or the child's husband is asking for help because the daughter is pregnant. So they stay behind another year, and another year, and another year. Time passes by. This young man, at the tender age of 16, decided Hajj is incumbent upon him. So he went to make Hajj with his mother and his brother. When he arrived in Hijaz, he was mesmerized by Islamic scholarship over there. And he was so happy, he begged his mother, please let me stay and learn. And she agreed. How many of our youngsters, brothers and sisters, they demand from the parent, I do not want to be in Houston. I spent 18 years of my life here. Let me go to California. Let me go to Massachusetts. Let me apply for university in West Virginia. Let me go there 4 or 5 years. Let me explore my life. This young man, he sought his mother's permission politely. And she agreed. And she gave him permission. And he spent 2 years in Hijaz. When at the tender age of 18, listen to this, he published his first book, Qada'u Sahaba wa Tabi'in, the legal juristic verdicts of the Sahaba and Tabi'in. At the age of 18, this young man had mastered extremely complex subject. The same year, at the age of 18, he published another magnum opus, At-Tariq al-Kabir, which is an 8-volume publication. We have in our hands today, till this is, mashallah. It's a book which comprises biographies of all the famous scholars from the time of Rasul till his time. Imam Bukhari had memorized people's lives and their biographies. Who's married to whom? Where does he live? Who was his teachers? Who was his students? What was the name of his horse? Which town he grew up in? Which town he visited? When did he visit? And when did he die? All of these vital pieces of information about people's lives. Tens of thousands of people. He knows their biography by heart. I often think that Imam Bukhari is the application, the perfect application of this surah of the Quran. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. This is Imam Bukhari's life. When he was in his early 20s, he wanted to travel to Baghdad to learn from the scholars over there. And who are the scholars of Baghdad that he wants to learn from? These are all famous scholars of hadith. Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Al-Imam Abu Bakr ibn Abi Yahya, ibn Abi Dunya, and we have Ishaq ibn Rahaway, Ali ibn al-Madini, Yahya ibn Ma'in. These are top-notch scholars. They have written multiple books. We have their books in our hand today. Al-Imam Bukhari surpassed all of them, head and shoulders above them. And if we study his character, his life, we'll see why he did this. In fact, his life is full of blessings and full of great lessons. In the second half of the khutbah, we'll explore some of them. أقول قولي هذا لأستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Talking about Imam al-Bukhari, his teachers, he narrated hadith from 1080 people. So one of my teachers said, HD is 1080p. That's how you can remember how many teachers Imam Bukhari had. But this is nothing compared to the number of people whom he taught. Listen to this, brothers and sisters. I have estimated that in my life, perhaps I learned all the subjects, all the institutions, all the teachers I ever had, perhaps the number is 200, if that. Al-Imam al-Bukhari had 1,080 scholars, which means all of his young life, he was going from lecture to lecture, from this masjid to that masjid, from this halaqah to that halaqah. And he would encourage himself and his fellow students to go attend lectures and to learn from the scholars. But as fantastic as the number of teachers that he learned from, he taught, no exaggeration, 90,000 students in his lifetime. It is because he was so well traveled. It is because he was so well regarded. People already knew about him while he was in his teens. By the time he entered in his 20s, he became exceptionally famous. It is said that he praised his teacher Ali ibn al-Madini, Allah yarhamuhu, who himself is a great scholar of hadith. He said, I have never discredited myself in front of anybody, or never thought of myself as insignificant, except Ali ibn al-Madini. Ali ibn al-Madini, when he heard it, he said, disregard his statement. Al-Bukhari has seen no one like him, which is absolutely true. Imam Ahmad, who's never prone to exaggeration, he said, Khurasan has not produced anyone like Muhammad ibn Ismail. He's talking about Bukhari. Imam Ahmad is not prone to exaggeration. And he's talking about this young man. He was so well regarded, so famous in his own lifetime. It is fair to say by the time towards the end of his life, he was the most famous Muslim in the Muslim world at that time. Because everyone knew of him, everywhere you could find students of his, and he had pretty much visited every major and minor center of learning. He was there as a defendant of the Sunnah. But despite his character, despite his memory, despite his learning, if there's one thing we can benefit from the most, brothers and sisters, is his character, his beautiful manners. In this khutbah, you will hear me use a lot of hyperbolic adjectives, the best, the highest, the most noble. These are all exaggerations for anybody else, perhaps. But for this man, this is fact. These are all facts. In fact, he is the epitome of following the Sunnah to the best human way possible, which is mentioned, which is described from the stories of his character and how he dealt with people. It is said that by trade, Al-Imam al-Bukhari was a cloth merchant, a trader. And once he was traveling by boat, after having made a significant sale and accumulated a fantastic profit, and he was talking to one of his boatmates. So he revealed to his boatmate, I had a good time, I sold a lot, and I have 10,000 dinar with me, 10,000 gold pieces. The man has some disease in his heart. What he did, listen to this, the audacity of people. He went and made an announcement in the ship, my 10,000 dinar have been stolen. What does he want? He wants to take that money from Al-Imam Bukhari. So the captain of the ship had the entire boat searched. They could not find anything. And look at this, how shameless this man is. He goes back to Al-Imam al-Bukhari. He says, where is that money? And I know for a fact you don't lie. Some people are so shameless. Al-Imam Bukhari responds to him, when you did your dirty trick, I took the money and threw it in the river. The man said, 10,000 dinar. You threw 10,000 dinar in the river? Why? Al-Imam Bukhari said, I have spent a lifetime defending and protecting the Sunnah. I cannot allow anybody to cast doubt on my character because of you. Brothers and sisters, think about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defended the character as well as the reputation of Imam Bukhari by giving him fame till this day. 12 centuries down the line, we're talking about him. He purchased the adoration of this ummah till the day of judgment by giving the 10,000 dinar. How many of us are so careless about our reputation? How many of us make no effort to defend what people say about us? So what people say, Allah SWT knows what's in my heart. No, you make an effort to dispel myths about you. Today, till this day, no one can ever claim that Al-Imam al-Bukhari stole something. Ever. Because of what he did. There's another story about how good he was in keeping promises and maintaining expectations. He was a cloth merchant. He was sitting in a souk, in a marketplace. A man came, looked at something Imam Bukhari had on display. Thought about it, he said, I'll come back tomorrow and talk to you about this. Imam Bukhari said, okay. The man went away, someone came back and offered double the price of that cloth. Imam Bukhari said, no. Because the other person who came before you is waiting for this to be present tomorrow when he comes. From perspective of Sharia, it is perfectly halal for Imam Bukhari to sell to the second guy. But he likes to uphold people's expectations. If he's made a promise, he will stick by it. Allah says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ufu bil uqud. Fulfill your contracts. Fulfill people's expectations of you. Fulfill your promises, like this man did. He was worried about what people think about it. And it is said that he became so well known and felt so well regarded that people would invite him everywhere. Come and stay with us, Imam Bukhari. And he would say no. But when he turned in his 60s, like any person, he decided it's time for him to retire. And where would he like to retire? His own hometown, Al-Bukhara. So he went to Al-Bukhara. In a very short time, he became obviously very famous in Al-Bukhara. All the other teachers, their students declined, and his halaqat, his lectures became full of students. The governor, like governors of any town who are simple-minded people, the governor said to Imam Bukhari, sent a letter, my 2 sons, I want you to come teach them in the palace. I don't want to send them to your halaqah. Imam Bukhari says, I do not lower myself for anybody. Your sons are more than welcome to come listen to my lecture in the masjid. The governor became very angry, very incensed, and he made life so difficult for Imam Bukhari. It is said, Imam Bukhari's neighbors would close their doors when they see him passing by, out of fear that the governor will attack them. And he made his life so difficult that the great and noble Imam had to go outside the town, waiting for permission to enter his own town. And on the 1st of Shawwal, in the year 256 Hijri, on the day of Eid al-Fitr, Allah SWT caused Imam Bukhari to pass away. May Allah have mercy on the life of Imam Bukhari, and may Allah allow us to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ like this man did. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنتَ الْوَهَّابُ اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة